Hello everyone, I'm Hannah Lloyd.
And I'm Charlotte Gilfillan.
Welcome to our podcast, Women in Wellies.
Each episode we will be inviting a guest to share their stories, experiences and lessons of working and living in rural Scotland.
We want to get to know the real women behind the Wellies and share them with you, our listeners.
Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Women in Wellies. Today we are joined by Chloe Forbes of Country Sport Scotland and Stormwatch Gundogs. Chloe, lovely to have you on. How are you?
Very well. Thank you very much for having me on. I feel honoured to be invited.
Well, no, we're really looking forward to having this discussion with you today. Why don't you start us off by telling our listeners more about who you are and what you do?
So I'm Chloe Forbes. I'm the project manager of Country Sport Scotland. I've been living in Scotland now for over 4 years. So my job is, Country Sport Scotland, the organisation, is a marketing platform for country sports opportunities and accommodation in Scotland. So a lot of the work I kind of do is marketing to the consumer, the opportunities they've got available, and then also working with the businesses who are looking to advertise with us and developing those opportunities there. And that's obviously my kind of day job. And then also run Stormwatch Gundogs with Will, my husband. He's the main person behind it in terms of training, and I just kind of help assist with some of the other stuff, mainly kind of Instagram and sort of helping to build that brand. We just really, the focus is trying to build the brand in the sense of, the gun dogs that are kind of fit for purpose. They're all round, they're pets, but they're also, out in the field, during the day and doing the job properly to the best of their ability, and just connecting that kind of bond with the dog and the owner. And I currently have obviously a Teckle, which is due to give birth any day. So very excited to see her pups and see what they kind of produce. It's good as well because we usually, Will's mum tends to kind of do the litters. So this is the first time I've actually done one of our own. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they kind of develop. So my background is, I've always been involved in the countryside. I'm from kind of the Lake District area. So I've been brought up around animals, mainly horses. I actually used to kind of compete horses up to a high level till about the age of 18, and then kind of went into kind of shooting and like mainly clay shooting, much to my mum's dismay. I think she would have liked me to stick to horses, but I'm sure my dad was actually quite glad that I didn't. I kind of got into clay shooting and did that for many years, worked at a kind of clay ground, helping out on a country clothing store and the clay shoe, and I did kind of registered competitions with clay shooting and did a little bit of game shooting, but it wasn't really till I moved to Scotland that I really got into kind of that kind of side of things, sort of field sports and, deer stalking, and more so with the dogs, I guess, with meeting Will as well. He's been brought up with dogs his whole life. So I love seeing that. I love kind of training the dogs. Although I don't do kind of trialing like Will does, I love to see the dogs, kind of start off as puppies and see them develop, and then having the first day in the fields is always a very special moment.
Yeah, so curious as to what prompted the move to Scotland 4 years ago.
Will, it's all entirely down to Will. So you can blame him. But no, we actually, me and Will met on a shoot day in the Borders, just through mutual friends, totally random. Like we didn't have, we didn't know each other really. And these people, the mutual friends, like they didn't really know each other. It was just totally by chance that we happened to meet on that day. And we got on quite well, and we kind of were back and forwards. And then I made the move to Scotland because Will is self-employed. He's a farrier. So his work's kind of here, and doing kind of marketing, you kind of do that anywhere really, essentially. So I loved it up here. Like I love the lifestyle, I love Scotland. So I thought, why not? And still here 4 years later.
Oh, and they all lived happily ever after.
Well, yeah, something like that.
At what stage did you start working for Country Sport Scotland?
So I've been working for Country Sport Scotland now for about a year and a half. Before that, I worked for an estate just a little bit north of Pitlochry. And they also offer kind of sport and country sports, but they're quite big tourism. They do accommodation. They've got the castle. which visitors come to. And so it was I had a bit of experience in terms of well-rounded experience of tourism on an estate, and also, my main job was kind of marketing there. I did some events and operations as well, so that kind of led me on to this position now, which in a sense is sort of similar because it's mainly marketing. Also do attend events, and it's more of a kind of strategic role though than my role previously, so I've got more kind of opportunity to develop and really kind of progress if I want to. And also, because I am the only person that works for the organisation, I do have that kind of creative freedom to be able to kind of put forward my ideas to the board, but also sometimes can be difficult when you are the only person and you need somebody to kind of bounce ideas off. So it swings and roundabouts, but it's a great organisation to kind of work for, and I've met some fantastic people through it. And, hopefully we'll see what happens in the future, how we develop.
I absolutely love that Sybil has already come up in this conversation. As a firm fan of Chloe's Teckle, Sybil, I am delighted that she's already come up, and she's a cracking little character. So Chloe, you've given us a brilliant overview of what you do, which is so diverse, and you can tell that you're really passionate about the countryside and Scotland. And even though you're a relative newcomer, that you really love life in Scotland. So, moving on, what inspires you to kind of do what you do, and why do you do it?
I think really my background kind of being in the countryside, okay, maybe not in Scotland, but, just been surrounded by kind of animals. And, when we were kids, I mean, mum, dad used to just kind of, kind of throw us out of the house and say, go entertain yourself. And which was great. I mean, it's probably just not like that nowadays, but, we had like some land at home. So we kind of, we were fairly kind of safe, and I was riding horse and things like that, but I've always been outdoorsy. Like, I just love being outside, and coming to Scotland, like, some of the opportunities I've had, like, in sense of just living where we do, it's fantastic. It's rural, we can head up to the hills, but we're also kind of nice location that we're fairly central, and we're close to kind of Dunkeld and things like that. And in terms of like, country sports, I mean, I guess like living down south, I hadn't really done that much kind of field sports. Then obviously moved up here, and going out things like, I remember the first time I went out deer stalking, I was just amazed at like how big a landscape it was, and just love kind of meeting new people as well that are kind of similar mindset, and learning from them, and the stories they've got to tell. Like, I just love learning more about it, and I just want to kind of like share that with other people as well. So that's why kind of put stuff on Instagram as well, the experience that I've had. And I love being able to kind of tell stories through the job that I do about the people. I guess it's really the people and the scenery as well, and the kind of in terms of country sports, like some of these places that you kind of get access to are totally like remote and wild, and those people live and breathe those landscapes. And I just think being able to tell the stories of those people, and going and seeing how a different estate does things as well, like I love that. And I've been able to kind of work with different organizations in my job as well, who all have slightly different specialism. Like, I love that side of things when it comes to my role in Country Sport Scotland.
I think it's really interesting that all three people that we've interviewed so far, all episodes have been out, everything that inspires people has come back to people, and it's so, it's a massive thing for me that people really inspire me and sharing their stories. And I think that's it's amazing how like-minded people come together almost unconsciously. Like, I wouldn't have realized that all the guests we've had so far would have said people, but everybody's said people inspire them, which is I guess is an example, isn't it, of this like-minded people kind of coming together, which is really, really exciting, and sharing stories, which is what we're here to do.
Yeah, and I think, like, I don't know, compared to other industries, because obviously this is the one that I'm kind of involved with, but I feel like, the country sports industry, because of maybe it's kind of like public perception, I feel like those that are involved with it, they really do kind of come together and they work together. Generally speaking, I know there's maybe some case where it doesn't happen, but generally speaking, I think most people kind of want to work together and kind of help each other out. I certainly get that impression, and obviously I've been here a short time, but I think that, there's a lot of connections as well, because it is a small industry. A lot of people kind of know each other. And I think that's what makes it so nice as well, as that kind of community feel.
Yeah, I definitely think that sense of like supporting each other, community, and is huge and across Scotland, but particularly in the rural sector, in its kind of in its clusters. So yeah, for sure.
What do you think makes Scotland so special and unique when it comes to country sports? Why should people come to Scotland to take part in them?
I think there's lots of reasons why they should, but I guess if we're looking like purely at kind of country sports, I mean, as a country, it has such a diverse offering of country sports, like compared with anywhere else. I mean, you've got all your different, your four species of deer, and open hill red deer stalking, like it's iconic to Scotland, and particularly if they use like the Highland ponies, like the Garans. I mean, there's not really anywhere else in the world that sort of does that. And I think, that's a big one for people to kind of come and experience. And I think they also like, that it's quite a traditional sort of thing. I think there's that quite, I was speaking to a guy actually, because I'm trying to look at developing into kind of the American market, because, we get a lot of kind of American visitors. And he said that, they really feel that there's a kind of like tradition and, that kind of pride in the work they do and things like that in Scotland. And I think that's something that, visitors really feel when they come over, and the way that people have been doing things for, centuries. And, that's obviously just kind of deer stalking, but also just in terms of like, the game shooting. I mean, there's lots of different kind of species, and there's opportunities, driven shooting, or walked up shooting, like with the dogs. I think there's all different levels, and you've got your kind of wildfowling as well, and then fishing is a whole massive industry in itself as well. And the famous like Atlantic salmon on some of the rivers as well. People travel from literally all over the world, and I think it's because it has that prestige. It's set in a beautiful landscape, usually, and also just the people as well. I mean, some of the gillies that I work with, have been on the river for like, 40 or 50 years, and they just know every single little bit of that river. And visitors love that, because, they soak in all that kind of information and different ways of doing things. And I think, to probably pin it down to one thing would just be like the diversity of opportunities really available, and then all the other things that kind of come with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot more opportunities now for women to be involved in country sports. There's a lot more women taking part in fishing, shooting, stalking. There's a lot more female gamekeepers. You would have noticed a real kind of increase in that, Chloe.
Yeah, I have. I think, I mean, since being involved in kind of clay shooting, because I think that's quite a good gateway sport to kind of get into field sports. And I've been kind of shooting now for over 10 years, and I used to kind of host ladies' days and things like that with an organisation. And since then there's been a lot more kind of ladies groups set up, and they're really good at kind of giving women an opportunity to kind of get into it, but also I think it's obviously giving people a place to maybe get started, but I think it's just more widely accepted now that women are involved in the industry, and whether they want to do that through a specific ladies group, or they're just involved in it through friends or family or whatever it is. I think there's definitely more people kind of coming in, and I think that's been kind of taking place over many years now.
Do you get a lot of people coming to you, a lot of women coming to you to ask how to get into certain sports?
Yeah, I think I probably do. I probably don't. I think I get a mixture of all sorts of people probably come in to asking how to get started. Certainly through my job as well. Those that are maybe kind of beginners, I always try and put them, perhaps with a sporting agent or somebody like that who has got a lot of experience, who can provide equipment and all those sort of things, and make sure people start on the right foot. But certainly say there's more kind of interest, and I think Instagram is probably like a big driver as well. I think it gives people like a platform to kind of connect and maybe like find opportunities. Probably shouldn't say just solely Instagram. Social media is a great platform to kind of meet people as well. I think that people maybe lots of people, like in terms of like some of the ladies organisations, probably never actually met face to face before. They maybe just spoke on Instagram, but then it kind of gives them the confidence to see, what some of these days are like, and they'll go along. And, my perception of going along with some of these days with organisation is that they're very welcoming and you kind of make friends for life as well. And I think it's great to have that platform to kind of connect with people if you're kind of thinking about getting into it.
I mean, your own Instagram, you very much come across as an ambassador for country sports, whether you were doing that job or not. It's very clear that you're very passionate about it, that you love it, that you love being out in the countryside, that you love taking part in all these things. And it just looks really enjoyable. It just, the impression that you get from looking at your Instagram feed is that what a wonderful thing to be part of.
Oh, thank you. Well, I certainly try to I try and put a realistic impression as I possibly can. But I think, I enjoy all aspects of kind of country sports. I just love a country way of life. Like I said earlier on, that's all I've kind of ever known. And I think that, I'm always keen to kind of learn more as well. And I love following other platforms because, everyone has a slightly different specialism or whatever they're kind of into, and I love being able to kind of look at things and learn something from other people as well. And if people get that back from me, then that's great. But I think I really just want to say that it doesn't, there's so many opportunities out there. There's not just one way of kind of doing things, and it's not always kind of maybe stereotypically like driven shooting or, red day stalking, that kind of higher end maybe things for people to start off in. There's lots of other ways of kind of getting into it, like going to these clay shooting days or, getting in touch with somebody who's involved that could maybe kind of take you out or whatever it is. I just want to kind of promote that there is lots of different opportunities out there. And, I probably I enjoy doing a little bit of everything as well. I'm not like, it's not one sole thing that I like more than the other. I've really enjoyed deer stalking since I moved up here, and I love kind of going out, but I also love kind of working the dogs on a day, or just or being on the river, whatever it is. Like I love kind of all aspects of it, and I just want to try and push that out there and give people, make sure it's kind of clear that there is different opportunities out there. There's not and there's lots of different ways that you can kind of get into it as well. Like, some of the organizations, like Basque and other organizations have, days on as well. If you become a member, they have a lot kind of training days and different things that, people can kind of get into as well. So it's not just kind of social media. There's like a big network that you can create from, being involved in some of these organizations too.
Which creates great opportunities and then more opportunities for more experiences, which is I guess what this is all about. And Chloe, I think so far we've been very positive, and a lot of it is very positive, but alongside positivity there's always going to be some challenges. And what challenges have you kind of faced, both working for Country Sports Scotland and in the industry as a whole?
I think there's probably two ways to answer this. I think if I was looking at just like my position as in the organisation that I work for, I am obviously the sole person to work in the organisation. So while I said earlier that is great because, it gives me creative freedom in a sense, and, gives me the opportunity to kind of, if I've got an idea, to push it forward. But also, it can be a little bit lonely sometimes because it's just me, and, it's quite hard to, not always have, although I do kind of have a team around me, it's me just focused on this organization. So that's where I think it's important to kind of have a good network of people around you, that if you have got an idea and you want, some kind of feedback, that you can pick up the phone and speak to somebody. But yeah, I think that's probably sometimes a challenge, just that kind of sole working situation, which I guess must be quite common for a lot of people in the rural sector, because some jobs are like kind of working on their own. And that's why, like I said, it's important to have good people around you. And then I guess another point would be, public perception on kind of country sports, and, that sort of, and government as well, and some of the kind of legislations that are coming into place like that does put kind of more pressure on the industry, and some further restrictions as well, which which is difficult. Sometimes you can feel that's getting up against you, but I think you've got to just think about the positives and just be mindful of what you're doing. Like, I'm always really conscious, I feel like a responsibility when I'm posting stuff, even on social media, that really making sure that, everything's kind of best practice, and making sure that, all the work we do kind of promotes that, because, all the estates that we kind of work with endeavour to do that as well. And you just want to make sure you get that kind of clear message across, and there's then, it helps with hopefully less scrutiny as well, because everybody's kind of doing their jobs properly.
I think, Chloe, social media is a really powerful tool in changing public perception as well. Like you say, making sure that best practice is what's demonstrated on social media, and linking back to what you were saying before about, people see what's on social media, not just country sports enthusiasts who've maybe been aware of what happens before. And I know, like, I'm a really good example of somebody who was very unaware of what happened in the kind of country sports world, but has learned loads through following people on social media and through speaking to people. And I've been fortunate to engage with people. But putting out there best practice is something that we do have to all be aware of when we're posting whatever you're posting. We all know how quickly something controversial can kind of blow up on social media. So I think it's really powerful, and really good that you're like mindful of that when you're posting, I think.
And I think also, like, what I try to do is, the say, if you want to look at it like the, taking the shot, or, the kill, it's such, whether it's stalking or whatever, it's such a small part of like the country sports. And like, say for instance, if you're talking about, the kind of the days stalking, for instance, it's a very small part of the day is pulling the kind of trigger. It's everything else that goes with it. And, those experiences of being somewhere kind of totally remote and wild with somebody who's got, so much knowledge, experience, who loves his like job, and, knows the landscape better than anybody else, and can kind of share that. And, the kind of stalking in, because it's not an easy thing to do, and they're a wild animal, and it takes a lot of skill to be able to kind of successfully stalk into an animal. So, there's all those things that before you've even kind of pulled the trigger. So I think that it's also just about showing that kind of experience, really, and all the other bits, and not kind of, focusing on the blood sport, so to speak. That's probably how maybe some of the public perception sees it as.
Yes, it's really interesting. I've had a few conversations with people kind of over the last year where they've said like some of their best days stalking, they've actually, they've gone home empty-handed as such. They've not even pulled the trigger, but they've been with great people, they've been in amazing scenery, and they've just had, a really memorable kind of experience, whether it was that they were up before sunrise or whatever. You just see like totally the landscape in a totally different way, and you're probably the only people for miles and miles around, and just really get to soak in parts of Scotland that other people just don't visit, I guess. don't get to.
Yeah, and I think it's also like, for me, I would have just an enjoyable day going to a shoot, picking up with my dogs or beating than I would being in the line of guns. Like, it's not really about that for me, and for everyone else that's kind of involved who understands the industry, it's about, just being there with those kind of people, similar minded, and, having a bit of, banter in the countryside as well. Like, it's just being with kind of people, friends, and socializing, and, working the dogs. And, that's like a big part of it as well. Like, to me, like I said, whether I'm kind of, shooting myself or just going along to the day, it doesn't matter. It's just about kind of being out there and being with like-minded people.
Chloe, what would you say was your favourite country sports experience? Is there one that stands out for you?
I think it would have to be the first time I ever went deer stalking, because it's unlike like anything I'd ever done before. And I also realised I was massively unfit. So that also taught me that. But that was just a side thing. But no, it was, my first experience deer stalking, Will took me for my birthday up to Glenartney, just past Crieff, and we went out with Alice, the head stalker there. And Will's actually been going there for quite a few years. and he shoots the kind of hill ponies up there. So yeah, we went out. It was quite a bleak day actually. It was pretty miserable, but it didn't matter at all. In fact, that was kind of like one of the nice things about it really, is just being outside. Even though it was wet and wild, it was still really enjoyable. And like I said, it was quite hard to get up the hill for me. The other two didn't find it so hard. But it was just, yeah, I think I just really didn't know what to expect at all. And it was just totally like nothing I'd experienced. It was, remote, wild. Like I loved hearing about, the deer management side of things, like, how many they, how it all kind of works, that process. And I didn't really even have much experience with rifles, but Alistair made me feel kind of comfortable and confident, and made sure that I was within my capabilities if I was going to take a shot. And yeah, we got into some after kind of by sort of the afternoon, and I was managed to kind of take a shot, and I just remember seeing the hill ponies coming up the glen and with the saddles, and I was just like, wow, like you can't really describe that feeling unless you kind of see it. It's just amazing. I felt very lucky like to be able to do that, because I know not every estate kind of use hill ponies, but I think also for me, like having horses all those years, it was kind of like a nice thing to see them working like in a traditional way. And I was very excited to be able to lead the pony back down the hill as well, and just then go back to the kind of larder and see how they do things back there as well. Because like I said, I hadn't really had any experience with that. So I just loved the whole process, and I couldn't kind of wait to get back out again. And yeah, and I've done my DSC level 1 now as well. So I'm quite keen in the future to, do my level 2. And, I'd quite like it, if me and Will can go out and manage like a little bit of ground. We love eating venison as well. Like we try and eat all year round, like game if we can, like all through the winter especially. We get pheasants from a local shoot, and we use them, and we try and obviously like we eat venison. We try to eat a bit of everything, but we're really kind of mindful of that if we can be, especially when it's like on our doorstep as well.
I think that's so great in like an age of sustainability and all that, to be like so aware of where your food's kind of coming from. And I know when I've visited you, Chloe, you've made venison and it's been absolutely delicious. But and actually, like you wouldn't know. And actually, when I visited you too, Charlotte, you also made me venison. So there's a common theme here. But it's but I think that kind of being really mindful of where food's coming from, I think that also puts country sports probably more on people's kind of radar than it maybe has been for a long time, because we're all aware of food miles and trying to be kind of, yeah, I guess aware of where our food has lived its life before it's giving us a dinner or a lunch or whatever. So
I think sometimes there's a bit of a barrier of people kind of knowing kind of what to do with it. I mean, when I remember the first pheasant that I actually kind of de-breast myself, and I was like, where do I start? And luckily a guy that I kind of been shooting with, who has a lot of experience, he kind of properly talked me through the whole process of kind of how to do it. And then just from years of doing it, I've learned kind of quick ways to kind of do things. And I feel very kind of confident to handle a game. But, if you've never had that before, it can be a bit of a daunting task to know, like, where to get started. And I think it's just trying to, like, I always try, if nobody's kind of had game, is, maybe de-breasting something and giving it for somebody to kind of try in a way that they can maybe, like, recognise how to kind of use it, rather than just handing a dead bird, which can be a bit daunting if you, like I said, you don't have any experience.
yeah, please don't give me a dead bird. Please don't. I would have no idea. I wouldn't thank you for that, Chloe.
I know, it's I could give you a masterclass on probably how not to do it, but
I guess also, I was just going to say, you and Will this year are running the Edinburgh Marathon. Congratulations on that, because well beyond me. But you're running it for a charity who do kind of do this work, don't they? Make game more accessible for people, and in that way.
They're a fantastic organisation. They do a lot of work, I think especially down in England and Scotland certainly as well. But yeah, they basically work with kind of shoots and estates to kind of take some game and process it into meals, curries, pasta, whatever it is, and then give it to those people kind of in need.
Country Food Trust. We'll put a link in the. I think we'll put a link in the show notes to the Country Food Trust, because I think it's a great way for people to kind of, well, a great charity for people to support, and a great way for game to become a bit more kind of mainstream and accessible.
So, Chloe, we always finish up by asking our guests what their advice would be to the next generation of rural women in Scotland.
I had to think about this one the other day, because there's probably lots of things I would say, but I think it's like, for me, particularly like moving up here from down south, I think it's like having confidence in yourself, and if you've got an idea or whatever, is not being kind of afraid to say it and be kind of forward thinking, and we're always should be trying to progress and look at new ways and in the way that we can do things kind of better. And I just think having that kind of confidence to be able to kind of put ideas forward, and also, like, for me especially, I found that surround yourself with a good team of people, those kind of people that you can trust with, varied experience as well. I think, you don't want to always be, talking to people who always agree with you. I think it's also good to get people that, see things in a slightly different perspective as well. But those people that you can kind of trust are going to give you kind of honest feedback. I think that's really important. And I certainly found that, like, in my job, like I said, with it being quite, like a lone kind of working job, I've really tried to build a network of people, who from all different, organizations or types of experience, whatever it is, to be able to have people that you can kind of trust, rely on, and bounce ideas with as well. I think it's also good because I think that, you can get inspiration from other people as well. They might say something and, you might not go and do the exact same thing, but you might, take inspiration for that, and it might help to kind of trigger an idea or whatever it is, or look at something like in a different way. And I think it's also just kind of motivates you as well if you work with kind of people who are similar mindset, in the sense that they're kind of, wanting to progress, or, like have that sort of similar values to you, then I think that's also kind of motivates you as well to work with like-minded people.
I definitely agree. I think that a network that challenges you, but also just having those like trusted people around you is so powerful. I think I know that I'm where I am now because I've built a network like that. I know, Charlotte, I know you're the same, and Chloe, it sounds like you're also very much the same, of that kind of the power of people around you, and being able to pick up the phone and say, what do you think of this? Is this stupid? Or, can you pop in and see me? I've got this idea I want to bounce past you, or whatever. It really is incredibly powerful to have that around you and to build that.
And I think, like, from like my own point of view as well, I think it's like pushing yourself to like try new things as well. Like, sometimes, whether it's like, I'm not a big fan of kind of doing public speaking or, presentations, lots of people, but I know kind of, once I've done it, I feel like I've kind of achieved something. And I think it's pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. It's the only way you're going to kind of grow and progress. And also, I just think that, then it doesn't feel so like nothing's ever as bad as you think it's going to be. And, and then you feel great after you've done it. So I think, like, kind of pushing yourself to do things as well is really important, because I think that also then motivates you to think, I can do this. And then you kind of move on to the next challenge. And I think it's good to have things that challenge you and to push yourself as well.
It's actually really interesting that you say that, because although we're only a couple of episodes into this podcast, there are some themes already developing, and actually stepping out of your comfort zone is definitely one of them.
I feel like it's probably like the only way you really learn as well, like, is by kind of, pushing yourself. And sometimes, things work out well, and sometimes they don't. And that's, you learn from that, and then you move on to the next time or whatever it is. So yeah, I think so. And there's lots of things like I've done since I've moved up here that have kind of pushed me. And each time it gets like a little bit easier. And, I think that it helps you to progress and to feel like you're kind of moving forward.
Thanks, Chloe. So we will close out another episode. I can't believe that's episode 4 recorded already. Thank you so much, Chloe, for joining us today and sharing your stories, experiences and lessons. Some really great stories in there.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, and I hope it was of use to some people. And yeah, my door's like, it's always open. Drop me a message on Instagram or an email or whatever, and whatever it is, I'll kind of try and help if I can. If you want to look for country sports opportunities, obviously get in touch or follow us on Instagram.
Perfect, thanks, Chloe. If you want to connect with Chloe or learn more about Country Sports Tourism Group, then you'll find them on social media, and all the details will be in the show notes below. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, follow us on Instagram at Women in Wellies Podcast to stay up to date with all the latest news.
And you can email us with any questions on womeninwelliespodcast@gmail.com, and we'd love it if you could leave us a review and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Until next time.